have a little rest for a moment and talk about when I first got introduced to sailing.
Yeah.
And having got over the initial shock of what it was like, I saw these little single-handed boats going up and down the river, and they looked very attractive. You know, they were so easy to manoeuvre and everything. And of course, being on the River Lee, which wasn't very wide there anyway, they seemed to be able to manoeuvre over the place. But the Broxbourne Club had, just before I joined the club in 1958, they had a scaled down version of a full-size Thames A-rater, and it was called a half-rater. And there probably is a photo in the club room of it, but despite the fact the river being narrow, they still managed to, you know, turn the boat at the windward mark.
What sort of length of boat are we talking about? What sort of length of boat are we talking about?
Oh, I think they were around about 19 foot long, Stuart. Quite long to turn in the river.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, they got them round all right. And we had a course from the club room, which was then only I suppose it was only about 400 or 500 yards from my house on the bridge. And they used to drop a turning mark, just short of the house, you know, my bank. So I couldn't help but notice them as they came round.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, I'll pop down. So when I went down there was a chap, a very, very good carpenter. His name was Ken Ford. And he built moths, and I talked to him about the sailing, and he explained how nice it was, and I suppose he took the opportunity to sell me this Merlin rocket. And they were really, the early Merlin rockets, they were really like, they're like a moth in some way, because they had the rolled in side decks, so when it went over, there was a fair amount of buoyancy. The water didn't come cascading in like it did with an Enterprise or a 12 or something like that. Yeah, there was a certain amount of buoyancy there. And the mast on it was actually, I can describe it as being about 5.5 inches by about 1 inch. It was virtually a plank of wood, standing nearly 20 foot up in the air. And at the base, it had a metal spigot so that the mast could swivel. So like the earlier fins you see, the boom actually went through the mast. So that the mast had to rotate in the boat, which of course in the fin it did. Because where the fin mast was the thickest was a metal band. It was about 6 inches of diameter, a bit less than that, but it would swivel with the boom. You know. So he sold me this Merlin, and it was number 147. And Ken said, it had the name on the stone. It was called Nimue, N-I-M-U-E, which according to Ken was a god of wind, a Greek god of wind. I don't know what that implies, but still. So I took this Merlin out and managed to capsize it, and that survived, apart from dumping a friend of mine in the boat by himself when I got left on the bank with a vicious puff. That was Eddie, who died last year. You know. And then of course I used to moor it alongside, because it was a lot of fag to take it out of the water, so I didn't know much about keeping boats clean underneath and all that, but the season wasn't all that long for me, so because I was still doing my bike racing as well, you see. And then when the river came in flood, the barge came round the corner and hit the big bollard protecting the brickwork, and it swung round, and the Merlin folded like a matchbox and sank.
Oh dear.
So I hauled the wreckage up, and I claimed again the grain people were called Albany, and had a wharf at Ware. And they used to take all grain to make malt and all that up there. In fact, even yesterday morning here, because the wind was north, you could still smell the malting smell came up here. So they've been there all those years, the maltings at Ware. Anyway, so with the insurance money, I claimed that they were insured with a co-op, I always remember that, but they paid outright. And with that money, I bought my first moth. But the only thing is, the one I wanted, I asked around in the club, and Ken had moths as well. So there was a chap there called John Lambert, and he wanted to sell a boat called Catkin, Catkin. It's not that name for a moth because it blows gently in the breeze, does it not? So 265, but he said you can have it after I do the championships, which were in Dover Harbour.
Oh yes.
A decent moth fleet at Broxbourne, and they were parked round a circle, all facing each other, bow forward, about 14 of them.
Yeah.
Including in it, of course, was Robert Tucker, the yacht designer, and his two sons, actually, Anthony and Robin, I believe it was. And then, of course, I started to go round. I didn't go to any open meetings at all until I was able to represent the club because I had a fair amount of spare time on mine. So I served on the committee of the Moth Club. The secretary then was Nielsen, Niel Nielsen, and he was based at Molesey, or East Molesey it was, and he had this business making marquees, and he got into sailing because there was a lot of moths up and down the river there, Desborough and Aquarius and places like that. And he then finished a moth, and he started making sails, and he was quite successful, and a lot of people bought his sails, and Nielsen sails were quite good. So he never managed to win the championships, and after Richard Elliott won in Dover the first time, the next time I think you'll find that's on the book was at Wroxham. Was that right, in 62?
Yeah. J.L. Chaundy.
Yes, I know.
Twit.
Yeah, I can remember them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, so the following year it was at Wroxham, and it was very, very light. So up to that time I got a rough idea of the history. I heard that it was called the Brent Cup because going back to the very first history of it all. Are we being interrupted?
It's all right. Would you like a cup of coffee?
See your coffee. It's cold day here.
Right there, so we're talking. Yeah, I'll have a coffee please for a change.
Yes.
Thanks, Josh. So they'd started racing, and because the original Moss is supposed to have come over here on a sister ship of the Lusitania. It either came over on the, I think the Lusitania was a sister ship of the Titanic. It was a White Star liner.
Yeah.
And this man, the designer, who was Sidney Cheverton, Sidney spelt with a Y, he brought the boat over from North America, where it was used in quite a few clubs for frostbiting in Chesapeake Bay. And it was 11 foot long, and the lines were exactly similar to the present lines, except it had, instead of being the curved bow, it had a sharp bow and a smaller rig with a bigger mainsail at least along the boom, but the mast wasn't nowhere near so tall. So Sidney bought the boat and decided he'd make a boat that was very manoeuvrable for the river and all that, so he designed it. And thereafter, if you wanted to build a moth, you sent to Chris Nielsen, and he would supply the set of plans and lines and tolerances, and you paid about £1 fee it was then.